Welcome to the MBU Football Coaches Show. I am Guy Danhoff, and of course, I'm joined with Coach B. Coach, we've now played 8 games, and you started out the season 3-0, and now you've been on a streak of 0-5. However, you've been in almost all of those games very competitively, and as we've talked about in previous shows, a play here, play there, penalty here, penalty there, could have made some different outcomes. But as you know, that's not the way football works. It's what is on the scoreboard at the end of the game. So talk to us a little bit about this past weekend as you travel to visit number 19 ranked Olivet Nazarene in Bourbonnais, Illinois. As we talked on your last coach's show, they were already averaging well over 420 points of total offense coming in, and they're a team that's now 3-0 in the conference. So talk to us a little bit about it as you fell to them 37-16.
Well, that was a really good football team. I think you even mentioned last week that the stuff that you saw in them, you felt like they were probably one of the best teams that we were going to play. And I would definitely agree. You know, when you watch them on film, they're very talented. We knew they had a lot of playmakers. Defensively, they do a really good job. And, that was probably the best team that we've faced all year. And they're very well coached. They've got size and speed across the board at every position, and it's a very challenging team to face and a very talented team. We were not at our best at the beginning of the game, and that's something that we've put a lot of emphasis on, and something that one of the things we've talked about as a team is that we kind of wade into things, and we've talked about that in the past. Is I think sometimes we don't always have the confidence that we can play with teams until we get a few plays that give us confidence. You saw as the third quarter went on, we break a long run, or Ron breaks a long run and gets a touchdown, and it started giving us confidence that hey, we can actually compete. Defense goes out and gets some stops.
Right.
And, we have an opportunity there with about 8 minutes to go to cut it down to 7 points.
Right.
And I don't know, maybe it was the direction we were going, the spot on the field or what, but that spot on that field has not been good to us, going back to a year ago when we fumbled and had an opportunity to take the lead, and here we have an opportunity to cut it to 7. But, I was really pleased with the way our guys responded. Halftime was honestly just a very interesting halftime. It wasn't a lot of screaming and yelling. It was just there were some things that we had to get fixed internally. As I say, kind of a family meeting, and we got that out. And I was really proud of how the guys responded and how they stepped up in that second half and continued to battle. But that's a really good football team we played.
Well, that's what I saw in film, and I've watched them actually play a few other games this season. Because sometimes they play at times that we weren't playing, so I certainly enjoy always watching teams in our conference, especially if I know we're going to play them. But just to kind of recap, you actually started the game 3-0 on a field goal, 37 yards by Reed. So you actually had the lead, and then the next thing you know, they score a touchdown. Okay, it's 7-3, but then to you talking about the confidence part of it, then the pick six, 58 yards the other direction, and to his credit, it was a fantastic play by the defensive player. So it wasn't like some of these other ones that we've seen in the past. But nevertheless, psychologically, after the first quarter, it's 14-3, and that play happened right at the very end of the quarter. Now the second quarter hits, they score a touchdown, miss the extra point, and a field goal. So going to half, it's 23-3. You're down, by 20, and then in the third quarter, like you were talking about, all of a sudden it's 9 or 30-9, because Allen breaks off that 45-yard run, and that's really where you're sitting going into the fourth quarter. As the final score was 37-16, but Demo had the 1-yard touchdown run, and like you said, you could have gotten within 7 points, and that's why we've been saying almost every week that you've been in all these games, and that's got to be the most frustrating part of being either a coach or even a player on getting the team ready for the next week.
Well, it is, and you mentioned Demo's 1-yard touchdown run. Give him a lot of credit, because the run that he had to get down there, the O-line did a phenomenal job. When you watch it on film, you could have literally driven a truck through that hole, and he hit it, but then he broke some tackles, and was a tough runner down the sideline, made guys stayed in bounds, made 2 or 3 guys come and tackle him from behind, and that just gave us a lot of momentum. And then we come back and we drive down, and yeah, you're exactly right. From I think not just from our standpoint, but from the player standpoint, that they're frustrated because they know that they can compete, and the thing that we're just continually working with them on is to believe that early on.
Right.
You got to believe that in warmups. You got to believe that when the opening kickoff happens. You can't wait and say, well, you know what, we're kind of hanging in this thing, now we can go play. Because truthfully, when you take a team as talented as Olivet, or going back in some of the past weeks, and the talented teams that are in our league and that we face on a week in and week basis, we can't spot them points. We can't just gift wrap them points and expect to be in the game and win. That's just not the league that we're in. I mean, these are really, really good football teams that we're playing, and the thing I keep telling the guys is that we are a really good football team, and it's just getting over that hump, getting that confidence that says, hey, at the end of the day, at the end of the 60 minutes, like you said, we maybe weren't perfect, but we got the win. And we just, over the last couple of weeks against these top-ranked teams, we just haven't quite got to that spot. But there's a lot left to play for, and that's what we've been talking about.
Well, absolutely there is. So just to kind of recap the, team stats, Olivet, again, had their 402 yards of total offense. Again, no surprise there. We had 292. They had really good balance. They had 213 passing, 189 rushing. In our case, we only had 86 yards passing, but the run game finally came back. I know 2 big runs helped that with 206 yards. On third down, interesting, pretty close. We were 5 for 15. They were 5 for 13. But here's what I want to ask you about. I'm going to give you the stat that just like I had to start like a few times. So Spartans, in some weeks, once in a while we get hit with that penalty bug, right? That but for the most part, this whole season, it's been, as far as what I would call unnecessary penalties, right? I mean, this has been the best season of the whole program. I can say that unequivocally because I've been going through looking at that stat.
Sure.
However, here's my question to you. How could the team not capitalize the fact they had 12 penalties for 211 yards?
Yeah, well,
wow.
I mean, yeah, that's a lot, and I think in some ways, a lot of ways, honestly, I would say that we did capitalize on them, and I'll say it like this because we were a little bit outmanned and on the special teams, and we didn't do a great job on special teams, right? They took the opening kickoff like 98 yards and scored a touchdown, but it calls back because of a penalty, and then the defense goes out there and goes 3 and out. So to me, that's capitalizing on that.
I would agree with that.
There's several other times where off of a punt or whatever, the guy makes a great play and we miss some tackles and there's a penalty. So, we go out and stop them. There was times where, they give us maybe new life in a drive or something like that. So, they were penalized an awful lot. I'm sure that's something that they're going to be addressing in this off week. But, I think we used that and capitalized on it about as much as we can. There's a few times there where it's a false start or an offsides, and those are hard to really quote unquote capitalize on. They had a running into the kicker where they hit our kicker, and they called it running into rather than roughing. So we opted just to take the punt rather than the yards. But I think there was times where we did, and ultimately here's the biggest thing is those penalties, like I said, really allowed us to stay in that game, especially early on. So because of that, we did capitalize. We didn't make any of the unnecessary penalties that just continued drives on their end, and that's a win for us.
Absolutely. So let's talk about again kind of the offensive standouts. Munn was 13 for 35 for only 88 yards. He did not have a touchdown, and he threw 2 interceptions. And obviously one of them was a pick 6. Allen, great day, 12 carries, 102 yards. He had a touchdown. And as you said earlier, that 45-yard run at a time to really lift the team in that second half. And then, of course, Morrison, Demo, he carried the ball 4 times, 74 yards, had the touchdown. However, it was set up by that 65-yard run where I think even I might have been able to get through that whole coach. I don't know, but, maybe. But what was kind of interesting here, and maybe you can speak to this a little bit on the passing side, because again, Spartans, I mean, stats were pretty solid on the running game, but Cloud and Triplet, they had combined 9 catches for 61 yards. But the stat where I put the star, it was interesting to see Tyler Ball, who's been averaging, at least 6 to 8 catches a game, certainly within the 90 to 110 yard range for receiving yards. He came up with 1 catch for 15 yards, and I was wondering, what it maybe accounted for that.
Well, defensive strategy is the biggest thing. We had him on a post route on the first drive, and right as he's catching the football, their DB just barely gets a finger and is able to knock it away, and that would have been a big play. Tyler might have scored on that play, and you just got to give credit to the DB on that. Every week, one of the things that the way our offense is built is, if you notice, like we've got the players in places now where we can take advantage of what they're going to allow us to take advantage of. There's some weeks where Ron and Demo are kind of the focal point strategically for the opposition, and we've been able to get Tyler involved and get some of these other guys involved in the pass game, and Josh has a really big day. This week, one of their biggest strengths is their secondary and their linebackers, and they're really big. Give them credit; they're really big along the defensive line. So the way they play their pass coverage, it allows them to kind of have numbers, so to speak, in the secondary, take away your passing game to where they're now daring you to run. Well, give credit. As that game went along, that our offensive line was able to spring our backs and create some of those holes, which then opened up our pass game a little bit more as we went on. But, I think a lot of teams, I know we do it, is go in and say, okay, we've got to stop these 2 guys and force them to beat you with somebody else. And obviously the guy that a lot of times that they're going to focus on is Tyler. They're going to double team him. They're going to figure out ways. And, I personally, although there's ways that we'll move him around and try and get those matchups. At the end of the day, we're not going to force it to any one person and let these other guys go do their job and step up and make plays, and I thought they did.
Oh, absolutely. I was just, again, curious on that side of it because, Tyler has always put up good numbers, and I knew the answer. Obviously, they were keying on him because of what he's been doing all season long. Now, on the defensive side, I want to say that since the Marion game, Jalen Cowley is certainly playing at an All-American level that he is, and I hope this year he's a first-teamer because, again, I think it's the 4th straight week with double-digit tackles. He had 10 tackles, 7 solo, 3 assists. Jax had a great game, 8 tackles, 6 solo, 2 assists. Williams had 8 total tackles, 4 solo, 4 assists, and then I know you've been talking about him from week to week as Loggins. He had 7 tackles, but 6 solo.
Yeah.
And, the defense, again, the play of Cowley, and also Joe King. I mean, he was then next in line with 6 tackles and also had a tackle for a loss and a pass deflection. I mean, you're just getting that good consistency on your defense. And last thing I want to talk about is I found this interesting too. Time of possession actually was almost dead even. You had a 29 minutes and 37 seconds. They had a 30 minutes, 33 seconds, and both teams punted 6 times. So, I mean, when you see it like, and again, I know this doesn't tell the story, but it's just interesting, again, just to sit there and say, the Spartans are in these games, and what makes it tough. So with that being said, Coach, anything else you want to reflect on about the game?
No, like I said, the biggest thing that I would reflect on is the opening half. There was times in there where we were not ourselves, and we had to have some very serious conversations on the sideline in the locker room, and I'm just really proud of the way the guys responded from that because that's not always easy, and when you're having we're putting pressure on them in regards to, things that we're asking them to do and how we're asking them to step up. And then again, you're down 23-3 at half, and then, it becomes 30-9. There's a lot of ways that I've seen teams that we've had in the past that were not as mentally strong, and that thing ends in a different way. And there's a lot of times where in the past maybe it's hard to sit here and find some positives, and
right.
you know, we kind of move on to the next week. But there were some positives. There were a lot of positives that came out of it, and that's a credit to the guys, and that the fact that although I don't think we're there from a mental toughness stage, we're making progress and we're getting to where we need to be. And it's just, you know, that's constant work on our end and on their end, but they're really owning it and rising up.
Right. So with that, you're going back to Illinois this week, except this time you're making your way all the way to the northern suburbs where I'm from. So really looking forward to that. You're playing Trinity International. You'll have a 1 p.m. start. Trinity right now is 2-6 on the year, and they're 0-4 in the conference. They played number 21 ranked St. Xavier, which we played recently, and they lost 62-7. And all I can say is you'll be playing on Leslie Frazier Field, a former '85 Bear, and I know he's one of the best defensive minds in the NFL today. But that field, Coach, first of all, I think it's the only field in our conference that is not turf.
Yeah.
And don't get me wrong, I grew up playing nearby in my high school as well as junior college right in that area, and I can tell you in October, on a day even like we have today, where you have the dreary overcast, and when that grass gets wet, especially there, footing can be tough. I can remember, you might remember these days, because you played in Colorado, where we would have the screw-in spikes, and you'd have like this size, and then you'd have like, you go to this size, right?
Yeah.
And we'd have to bring them out like this size for that field. So anyways, it'll be interesting to see what the game conditions will be like. And of course, I hate to say this, but you are going near the Windy City, and it's going to be, every time we play there, it's been extremely windy.
Yes, it has. And so I guarantee you, with the exception of Coach Russell, who, you know, when it was -3 is out there in a T-shirt last spring, because he's a Green Bay Packer fan. He says if you wear a jacket, you're soft. And Coach Schnabel, who's from South Dakota, the rest of us will be bundled up and ready for the Chicago wind and Chicago weather. But no, looking forward to it. It's funny, you know, we talk about Coach Co and how he knows everybody.
Of course.
When we were talking even this morning about it being Leslie Frazier Field, he says, you know, I'm going in, I'm calling Leslie and saying, you know, if they put your name on it, why you not donate money to put turf in, you know, because he knows Coach Frazier. And,
that is awesome.
You know, I mean, there's just nobody he doesn't know. But, you know, want to have a little fun with it, but we're looking forward to it, you know, and we talk about it all week, that it's a unique place to play. And, you know, that it's obviously the grass makes a difference. The thing that we've had in our favor a little bit more than past years is we went and did that scrimmage at Greenville, and that was on grass, and it rained, and the footing was real bad. And then we went up to Iowa Wesleyan and played on grass. So normally we go into this game with having never touched a grass field, and this year we've got 2 games under our belt. We understand what it's going to be like. One of them, fortunately, you know, early in the year was rainy and wet conditions, and it's supposed to be nice on Saturday, but it's supposed to be dreary and overcast today and tomorrow, and maybe some rain up there. So, you know, at the end of the day, the bottom line is what we talk about all the time: no excuses. We've got to go out and play Spartan football. We've got to get our confidence, our swagger, and all that back, and you know, just go out and handle our business, play one play at a time. They've got a good football team. You know, they're going to be hungry, and knowing that, hey, we just played St. X, we just played some of these other tough teams, and, you know, this is a game that we know we can win, and that's going to be their mindset, and it's our mindset too. So we've got to go out and earn it.
All I'll say is the point differential of when you play them here, there's a wide discrepancy as to when you play up there. Those games have been close.
Yeah, they absolutely have.
And I would say, and I am going to say this only because I've been there in person several times, the field conditions, especially when it rains, will impact the game, and certainly the wind, I mean, creates havoc for the kicking game, for even the passing game, and it's something that you just have to get used to right away and have the mindset that, hey, you know it's going to be like that. So again, no surprises, and then you build your game plan around whatever the conditions are, right?
Yeah, I mean, we're going to adjust the game plan very, very minimally, you know, based on that. You know, I think from an offensive standpoint, maybe it means we don't take as many deep shots if it's really windy or whatever, and maybe got to rely on the run game. But, you know, at the end of the day, we've got to go out and play our game. I think sometimes we've maybe, and this falls on us as coaches, allowed those conditions to affect us a little bit more than maybe we should have. That's been something that we've talked about all week is, we got to let things hang out. We got to let it rip. We've got to trust these guys to go out and make plays, and we've been preparing them all week to play on a grass field, and they understand what they're walking into. We've got a lot of veterans that have been up there, but it's something that it's going to be a 60-minute battle. We got to go earn it.
Absolutely. So with that, what I'd like to kind of end your show with this week is a real good feel-good story, because a few weeks ago, you decided to put out a video that in some circles have gone viral, and that was when you took practice footage of your field goal kicker, Ordain Reed, kicking a 70-yarder in practice. Now all of a sudden, from your post yesterday, talk to us about what happened, because I understand the media showed up here as they spent some time with Ordain Reed.
Yeah, Ahmad Hicks from KSDK came out yesterday and is doing a feature story on Odie, and him joining our team, and just got a little bit of his story, which is a really cool story. Obviously, him coming from Jamaica, coming here to play soccer, and now becoming a kicker and getting some real notoriety.
Yeah.
But that'll air this Sunday night on Sports Plus. I think it's after the football game,
yeah,
and after the news and stuff. So it might be on a little late. You'll have to set your DVRs, but. No, it was great to meet Ahmad, and really thankful that he came out and did a story on Odie. And the thing I talked to him about was just how powerfully strong his leg was, and he was amazed himself. He was getting footage of
right.
of Odie kicking 60-yarders, and he's kicking it over the net behind the goalpost. So,
right.
I mean, it's just amazing the strength that he has, and. That's what we want. We want it for all of our guys, and he's got obviously a special talent and a really, really neat kid. The more you get to know him, the more he's just a likable, fun individual to be around, and we're really excited to have him. It was funny, I was kidding Ahmad because he had the camera and he was getting some close-up shots of guys talking. I told Ahmad, I said, just a couple days ago, all these guys talking to him, they were really mad. They just weren't talking to him at all. But you show up and healed everything. But, they were making sure they got their time in too.
Well, I'll just say this because, every home game, I always go out with the team during special teams, from being the former long snapper in my whole high school and college career. And I have to tell you that when he takes the field and I look at the other team as they're watching, him kick in pregame, it's really interesting. Until you see him kick, you A, think he's a linebacker or a defensive end because he's that big. And B, when he has his helmet off, I mean, he just has that big smile. Like you can't even believe, in some ways, he's a football player because he doesn't have that, that look like JC has, for example. I mean, JC looks like, okay, yeah, let's go, right?
Yeah.
JC has a look, of course, a lot of our players do, but I'm just saying, I just love his personality and just seeing what he's done in 5 or 6 weeks now.
Yeah.
To think that he went from playing obviously soccer to now making the transition to football, and again, kicking, setting the school record at 53 yards. It's not every day someone in the NAIA breaks over 50 yards. So just want to say certainly thank you to Ahmad Hicks and KSDK for coming out and doing this nice feature. And I know that Adam Sampson's team, they'll go ahead and get that footage, and they'll be putting out on all the social media channels as well. So that way, and by the way, Coach, you might be dating yourself, DVR. A lot of us now have YouTube TV, and you just set it on a record list.
Yeah, I mean, we still live on a farm, and we don't get that fiber optic cables, so sometimes the gerbil doesn't run fast enough on the wheel to get our internet rolling, so we have to have DVR still. All
right, sounds good. Well, we want to wish you all the best, coaches. You head up to Deerfield, Illinois for kickoff against Trinity International with a 1 p.m. kickoff. And for Coach B, I am Guy Danhoff. We want to thank you for watching this edition of the MBU Football Coaches Show right here on the Spartan Digital Network.